Hey there, this is Miss Pathlin, and I am continuing to go over the E.O.C review packet. In this video session, I will be going over numbers 22 through 27. This is still the calculator portion, so I will be showing you how to use the calculator. All right, for number 22, which points are on the graph of the equation negative 3x plus 6y plus 5 equals negative 7? Select all that apply. So when it says select all that apply, we know that means there's more than one right answer. And we just want to plug in our values for x and y and see which ones are true. So for a, negative 3, 6, remember x comes first, so negative 3 is our x value, 6 is the y value. If that's hard for you to remember, think of the alphabet. X comes before Y in the alphabet, so it's alphabetically. All right, so we're going to plug this in. Negative 3 times negative 3 plus 6 times 6 plus 5 equals negative 7. And if it does equal negative 7 when we solve out this left side, then it's true, and it's one of our answers. So when we multiply negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. 6 times 6 is 36. Then we just want to add across. Now, I can already tell this is not going to be equal to negative 7. 3 positive numbers added together will be greater than negative 7, not equal to. So I can eliminate that answer. So once you get to a certain point like that and you know it's not right, just move on to the next. So that was letter A. Letter B. X equals negative 2, y equals 0. So negative 3 times negative 2 plus 6 times 0 plus 5 equals negative 7. Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 5. Again, I can tell that 6 plus 5 does not equal negative 7. So that is not an option. All right, letter C. X is 0, y is negative 2. Negative 3 times 0 plus 6 times negative 2 plus 5 equals negative 7. 0 minus 12 plus 5 equals negative 7. Negative 12 plus 5 equals negative 7. This one is true. C is a correct answer. X equals 6, y equals negative 3. Negative 3 times 6 plus 6 times negative 3 plus 5 is negative 7. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. 6 times negative 3 is also negative 18. Negative 18 minus 18 is negative 36 plus 5. I already know that's not going to be equal to negative 7. And then E. X is 8, y is 2. E negative 3 times 8 plus 6 times 2 plus 5. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24 plus 12. Negative 24 plus 12 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 5 is equal to negative 7, so E. So C and E are the correct responses. Number 23. At the beginning of an experiment, the number of bacteria in a colony was counted at time t equals 0. The number of bacteria in the colony t minutes after the initial count is modeled by the function b of t equals 4 times 2 to the t power. What is the average rate of change in the number of bacteria for the first 5 minutes of the experiment? Select from each list to correctly complete the sentence. The average rate of change in the number of bacteria for the first 5 minutes of the experiment is blank blank. So first off, when you're reading this exponential function, an exponential function is y equals a times b to the x. A is the starting number, starting point. And then B would be the growth factor, how much it's growing by. And then X is our time, or in this case, T would be our time, or X. So, and this is the time for minutes. So we know that it started with 4 for the number of bacteria, and then it's doubling. So we have to figure out for the first 5 minutes, so we need to plug in T equals 5. So B of 5 equals 4 times 2 to the 5th power. All right, when we are solving this, we need to do exponents first. So 2, this caret symbol to the 5th power equals 32. B of 5 equals 4 times 32. 32 times 4 is 128. Now we are not completed. We have to find the rate of change. So if it has grown by 128 bacteria, we need to subtract that first 4 because it started with 4 at T equals 0. So 128 minus 4 equals 124. So in the 5 minutes, it increased by 124 bacteria. So we want to get the average rate of change per minute. So we need to divide that by 5. And that gives us 24.8 bacteria per minute. Number 24. We're given a table here. Elephant population estimates in Namibia, combined estimates of E.O.C National Park and the northwestern population. The elephant population in northwestern Namibia and E.O.C National Park, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but I'm trying, can be predicted by the expression 2,649 times 1 and 45 thousandths to the B power, where B is the number of years since 1995. What does the value 2,649 represent? Well, again, you need to be knowledgeable of how exponential functions are written. A times B to the X. That first value is always our starting number of whatever we are counting. So for this one, the starting number would be the number of elephants population predicted at the beginning. So let's see, the predicted increase in the number of elephants each year. No, the increase would be your growth factor, which is inside the parentheses, so it can't be that one. B, the predicted number of elephants in the region in 1995. Yes, that would be your starting number, and it's since years since 1995. So it'd be how many they predicted, because of course it's hard to count exactly how many of a certain kind of animal in an area, so it would have to be a prediction. Let's just double check that the others are not better, but this one sounds right. C, the year when the elephant population is predicted to stop increasing. No, there's no claim on when it's going to stop. The percentage the elephant population is predicted to increase each year. No, that would be, again, your growth factor, which is a decimal, not percentage. So B, the predicted number of elephants in the region in 1995. Number 25. Using the quadratic equation, y equals negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 5 to complete the statements. Enter your answers in the boxes. The equation can be rewritten as y equals negative 2 times x plus blank squared plus blank. Now, I know that this is in vertex form, and I know that for vertex form, it's f of x or y equals a times x minus h plus k, where hk is the vertex. So with this, I know that these two numbers are my values for my vertex. This is the x value. Notice how it's minus h or negative h. but then it's positive h here. So you would always change the sign when you put it in vertex form. All right, so what we've learned in class for finding vertex is finding the axis of symmetry first. So I'm going to use that strategy, which is negative b over 2a. So going back to our quadratic function, b equals 4, so negative b would be negative 4 over 2. A equals negative 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 equals 1. So I know my vertex x value is 1, so h equals 1. I know when I plug it into vertex form, I have to do the opposite sign, so that would be negative 1. Now I can evaluate the function using x equals 1. So y equals negative 2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 plus 5. Solve it. 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Plus 4 plus 5. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. 2 plus 5 is 7. So I know this would be 7. My vertex is 1, 7, so that would be my answer here. Number 26. Jerome is constructing a table of values that satisfies the definition of a function. Which numbers can be placed in the empty cell so that the table of values satisfies the definition of a function? Select all that apply. Well, we know that for a function, each input can only have one output. So let's go through and see which numbers satisfy this definition. So we have negative 5. Now, as long as the inputs don't repeat, that's okay. So we don't have any others that are negative 5, so negative 5 could work. Negative 1, now we have another input of negative 1 with an output of 5, so it couldn't also have an output of 13. 0, we already have an input of 0 with an output of negative 9. That cannot work. 2, we do not have an input of 2, so that is possible. 11, there is already an an input of 11 with an output of negative 1, and 17 also already has an output of 5. So the correct answers would be A and D. Number 27. Use the information provided to answer part A through part C for question 27. Phil and Matt made cookies for a fundraiser at their high school. Phil made 25% more cookies than Matt. The cookies sold for 25 cents each. After the sale, 20% of the combined total of their cookies remained. Part A, create an equation to represent the total amount of money Matt and Phil earned at the fundraiser based on the number of cookies Matt made. Explain how you determined your equation. Enter your equation and your explanation in the box provided. All right, so we need to figure out what the variables represent. So it says to create an equation to represent the total amount of money earned. So I'm going to make that my y value. Y equals total money earned. And then based on the number of cookies Matt made, so let's do X, number of cookies Matt made. And then let's write down the information we know. Actually, before I'm just going to start explaining it and do that as I go. So you want to explain, let X represent the number of cookies Matt made, then the number of cookies Phil made would be, so now let's figure out how many. So if Phil made 25% more, so let's say Matt's making 100% of his amount of cookies. And then Phil is making 125% because he's 25% more than 100%. We want to convert that to a decimal. So we would divide by 100 or move the decimal to the left. So that equals 1.25. So Phil made would be 1.25x. Let y represent the total amount of money earned. Then we want to create our full equation. If we know that the cookies sold for 0.25 cents each, we want to multiply all of the cookies made by 0.25. And then after the sale, 20% of the combined total of cookies remained. So we know that if 100% of the cookies made and there were 20 left over, I'm going to subtract that. That means 80% were sold. And then 80% divided by 100 equals 0.80. So for our equation, it would be y equals 0.25 for the amount of money charged for each cookie times 0.8, because 80% of the cookies were sold. And then to combine Matt and Phil's total cookies, it would be x plus 1.25x. So to further explain this, the total number of cookies made is the sum of the number Matt made and the number Phil made. Only 80% of the cookies sold. So the total number needs to be multiplied by 8/10. Each cookie sold for 25 cents. So the total earned needs to be multiplied by 25 hundredths times 80% of the cookies, or of the total cookies made. You want to make sure you're being very specific. I apologize, that was not shown. But you want to be very specific and give as much detail as possible to make sure you earn the maximum amount of points for these constructed responses. So you really want to break it down and explain every single step and every single part of the question. All right, let's move on to part B. Phil and Matt made a total of $72 selling the cookies. How many cookies did Phil make and how many cookies did Matt make? Show your work. Enter your answers and your work in the box provided. All right, so now it's giving us the total equals $72. So we know that y equals 72. We're going to plug it into the equation we wrote in part A. 72 equals 25 hundredths times 8/10 times 1x plus 1.25x Now let's simplify it. So parentheses, we need to combine our like terms. 1x plus 1.25x equals 2.25 or 2 and 25 x. Then we need to multiply 25 hundredths times 8 tenths. So let's just show you in the calculator. 5 times 0.8 would be 2 tenths times 2.25x. (45 hundredths) x. If this is 45 hundredths times x, we need to do the inverse and divide by 45 hundredths. 72 divided by 45 hundredths equals 160. Now that's just for the amount of cookies Matt made. So we can say Matt made, because x represented the number of cookies he made, Matt made 160 cookies. All right, then we go back to our equation. Phil made 1.25x. So for Phil, 1.25 times 160 equals 200. Phil made 200 cookies. Part C. Next year, Phil and Matt may sell cookies for 50 cents each. They plan to make the same total number of cookies, but they predict that they will only sell 70% of them given the price increase. Based on their prediction, should Phil and Matt raise the price of the cookies? Justify your answer. Well, let's test it out and see how much they would earn. So let's rewrite the equation. Y equals, so if they're selling them for 50 cents each, 0.50 or 5 tenths. And then they're only selling 70% of them. So convert 70% to a decimal, 7 tenths. And then we already know that Matt made 160 and Phil made 200. So let's plug in those values and then let's solve it. So 5 tenths times 7 tenths is 35 hundredths. And then 160 plus 200 is 360. And then 35 hundredths times 360, they would make $126. Whereas the previous year they made $72. So then we need to explain if they raise the price to 50 cents and only sell 70% of the cookies, the new equation would be y equals 5 tenths times 7 tenths times 160 plus 200, and y equals 126. In this case, they will make $126, which is over $50 more than last year. So they should raise the price because they want to make a larger profit each year. So they should raise the price so that the profit increases. This concludes the video. Thank you for your time and watching. See you next time.